Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and today I'm hanging out with Brian. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. It's a good day. Spring is on its way, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm looking out. I'm in a basement, but I have some windows here, and I'm looking outside, and it's bright and sunny out there. If you'd be so kind as to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I am Brian, aka Urban Bohemian, pretty much everywhere on the internet. I am mostly a variety streamer and content creator on Twitch, doing video games, food and drink, some crafting, tabletop RPGs, and I'm also on a long-running actual play show, Rivals of Waterdeep, that we do Sundays. Not every Sunday because we take breaks, but Sundays.
Nice. As always, folks, there are links down in the description. You can go check them out and follow Brian across the interwebs and stalk him in a good way, not the bad way, the creepy way.
Don't stalk me. Just say hi. Please don't stalk me. Just say hello. It's all good.
um, so we were talking a little bit beforehand, and you mentioned that you kind of had been out of the hobby for a while and recently have come back. How's that experience been?
It's been really great. I'm now playing, in a campaign with friends, one of my longest time friends in a campaign. And I've been able to do other one shots, mostly D&D, but other systems as well. And the way that it's now kind of come back to, you're getting together with friends, you're telling the story, you're using a system with mechanics that support that story. It's been a lot of fun, and I do look forward to the sessions. Some of them I get nervous because you never know what your character is going to do between sessions, and you never know what you're going to do at the next session. It's like being in initiative in combat. You're like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Please don't roll high because I don't know what I'm going to do. Like,
I think the only thing I get nervous about at this point is, before GMing, you always get the jitters, and then in a lot of our games, we'll like randomly roll to see who's going to start off like the recap. And I'm like, oh,
oh
don't
yeah,
tell me. I always forget what we did, no matter how soon or how long it's been.
that's great. We get to cheat with
Yeah.
rivals. We get to cheat because our show is recorded. So if I really forget what happened, I can go back and watch the last video. It was also a big help when doing the GMing, when co-DMing with Eugenio, because we didn't really have to worry about taking notes. I could just watch the previous episode at like double speed and be like, got it, cool.
How was that experience GMing for a stream live?
It was my first time GMing ever. So it was kind of terrifying, although I had a really good partner in Eugenio. We kind of share a brain. We have a very similar way of telling a story and putting it together. But yeah, it was my first time ever. And to do it in front of virtually hundreds of people was a lot. But I also kind of got to lean into the aspects of playing and storytelling that I really love, which is crafting a narrative, writing some fun scenes, injecting a lot of jokes, and also just the fun of sitting back and watching players take those narrative hooks that you spin and watch them role play and take off with it was a lot of fun.
That is one of my favorite things is when they just take things and go in directions you never expected, or you realize you haven't said anything in the past like 20-30 minutes because they've just been interacting and role playing with each other.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that 20-30 minutes is because they're trying to figure out what you thought was a really simple puzzle.
Yeah.
And it is not because, of course, players are naturally suspicious of everything. But yeah, it's kind of like, well, I don't have to do anything right now. Go, y'all take care of it.
That is funny. Like there's like a meme of like a Reddit thread about like I'm trying to figure out a good puzzle for my D&D group, and someone's like, "Go get a puzzle book for kindergartners or preschoolers," and they're like, "That's so
Wow.
mean," and then they come back, it's like, "Oh my god, I should have totally did that."
It's interesting how, because of the way you set up all of your scenes, it's like, yeah, this I really did go into this thinking, okay, it's kind of easy to figure out. It's not super simple to figure out. And we've also had that with other things where, it was like a matching game, or, it really wasn't that difficult, but because you're thinking of this out live. You're also thinking about it in character. So you're trying not to kind of metagame like, oh, I know this joke, so I immediately know the answer to this. That's where it comes into fun. Because yeah,
Yeah.
we definitely sat stuck staring at a puzzle like, okay, we're trying to use our skills to actually figure this out as opposed to just cheating and saying, okay, look, I can look up the answer.
I think the flip side of it too, though, is like you'll come up with something, you think is really hard, and within like 10 seconds, someone just blurts out the answer, and you probably
Yeah,
like you agonized over it for a while.
that yeah, between puzzles and best laid plans,
Yeah.
yeah, there were a lot of plans that I think there is some phrase like, no plan survives contact with the players. But yeah, there were a lot of things that we prepared and they didn't happen. And that's okay because I get to now tuck those away for later. Or if somebody's looking for inspiration, I can like throw, well, here's a note that I didn't use later, so you can have that.
Most of the time anymore, when I do puzzles and things like that, I don't even create a solution. I just wait until they come up with something that's interesting and fun, and I probably wouldn't have thought of, and be like, yeah,
you're
that works.
you're just like, I'm gonna leave this open ended because they're gonna figure it out. Or they're gonna figure out something that's good enough, so we'll move on.
Yeah, pretty much. And I feel like that has caused me a lot less pain and stress in my life.
That's fair.
So now that you've DM'd, have you run other games since the co-DMing?
I have not. No, I've thought about it. One thing, I'm a huge Star Trek nerd, and I have thought about running, kind of writing a Star Trek adventure to run for people. I can't decide if I'd want to write it like an episode of any of the series, if I'd want to, or if I just want to write like a very fun romp kind of thing. But that has occurred to me. Otherwise, I'm happy being back in the player's chair. It was fun, but it was a lot of pressure, um, realizing how much the weight of what's going to happen is on you and checking in on a lot of things, making sure people are having fun, making sure you're sticking to your notes. And with Eugenio and I, making sure that we were checking in back and forth, that so both of our heads were going in the same direction with the story. So I'm happy to be a player for now, but I have absolutely thought about maybe like doing some like free writing and being like, okay, what's my one sentence idea for this one shot, and then fleshing it out from there.
Which of the series would you draw inspiration from for a Star Trek game?
All of them. um but I think it would be funny to that'd be weird. It'd be funny to like set it in the original series, um just to let people have fun with the costuming of their
Oh,
characters, like the way
nice.
their characters look, but to do it in the means of it's still Star Trek. So even though it was early days for the TV show, in the fiction, these people are absolutely experts and really good at their jobs and like, really badass. They just also are wearing, thigh high boots and mascara and all that everywhere too. So I'd probably run it like that, or it'd be fun to set something in the lower decks, kind of, which is a more of a humorous, not bridge crew universe about people who are just running stuff on the ship and what happens to them all the time.
I've been meaning to check that out. I just have not got around to it yet.
If you're into trying things out, I would say absolutely check out the pilot episode. It has a they use the animation to its fullest extent to
Yeah.
be able to find out what you can really do. And when you're doing it animation now, you don't really have to worry about special effects as much, and costumes and masks. They're able to squeeze so many Star Trek nerd references into a single scene. It's amazing now.
I'll definitely have to check that out. I think I don't think I know. Deep Space Nine is probably my favorite of the different ones.
Yep, that's good. I think when I see people talk about the captains and
Yeah.
from their different perspectives, like it's hard for me to pick a favorite captain because each captain had to deal with so many different things. Cisco is my favorite, but I'm just like I'm mad about the end of Quantum Leap. I'm mad about the end of Deep Space Nine because it ended on such a weird, whiffy moment and note. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so does he ever come back or what? Uh, but I really kind of enjoy each captain. But yeah, DS9 is my favorite rewatch series.
Yeah, it's the only one I went through and actually like feel like I watched the whole thing. Like I've probably seen all of the next generation only because I watched them when they're like on TV.
Yep.
But yeah, but Deep Space Nine, I actually went back and watched them all, and I just like, it's a good mix of like different types of stories and different types of characters. Felt like it had the most variety to me.
Yeah, I feel like that's what people they kind of pick their favorite Star Trek series and they want all of their new Star Trek series to be in the same storytelling style of that. So if you loved Next Generation, you want, you want big dramatic theatrical moments where everything is okay at the end of the episode. But then Deep Space Nine gives you that alternate where it's actually not okay. Nothing is okay. And they're just doing their best to make it through. And then, you have Voyager where they're essentially like space family Robinson, like lost in space, like
Yeah, yeah.
they're just trying to do anything they can to get home. And Federation rules are more of guidelines at that point than, directives. Yeah.
It's like the pirate code.
Yeah.
So Cypher Tier has a question: will we ever find out Virgil's surname?
We will. It is going to. Well, the thing is, it's actually already come up in an episode of Rivals of Waterdeep, during season 10 when Masood Haq was DMing. We actually discussed. We have a lot of like check-ins with DMs during it, and we discussed like what would the name of Virgil's family be. So it's been said on screen before, but it hasn't been. We basically I don't use it a lot. I really it's hard for me to come up with surnames for my D&D characters. I really am like a one name. I tried to come up with a draconic full name once and was just like, I'm just going to type a bunch of letters at random into the keyboard and that's going to be it. Um, but yes, we will see Virgil's surname. We will also find out Kent's surname. We just haven't determined when we're going to do that yet on the show.
It will happen.
Also, Cypher of Tier already knows it.
Yeah.
Cypher of Tier already knows it, but we haven't revealed it to the public yet. Kinda.
They claim to have forgotten. So get to be that's awesome. You get to be surprised twice. It's the gift
but
that
yeah,
keeps
we
giving. Rivers RPG wants to know how long you've been playing D&D. I'll just open it up to TTRPGs in general, though.
let's see here. Our wow. I mean, technically the 80s, but I did have, like I started out with a few friends from school and we tried the D&D thing and I actually I kind of joked that was actually my first time trying to DM and I was completely unaware of what I should read and what I shouldn't read in the actual adventure. So I was a horrible DM my very first time, but
Aren't
to
we
the
all,
point
though?
I was like I was like 12, so give me
Yeah.
a break. um but other than that, yeah, I kind of put the hobby down for a little bit. So spent, I would say, most of the mid to late 80s not playing anything. And then in the 90s, I picked up um, The World of Darkness. At that point, Vampire the Masquerade, both tabletop and LARP, and played that for a few years in the 90s, which live action role play when you're essentially in college with a bunch of people who are in college theater can get very dramatic much faster than you want to. There was a lot of emotional bleed like in and out of the game that was not as much fun. And then moved on to where I live now. Played some D20 like Urban Arcana with some friends, and that was one of those like the gaming group was together for a few solid weekends, and then
Yeah.
scheduling completely screwed everything up. So we never got back to that. We never found out what was next, which is that's what I hate about when you got a gaming group together and you can never get together for that next session because you leave it on a cliffhanger all the time and we never found out what happened. um and then playing it now, so yeah, I would say since the early 80s is long how long I like had the concept of tabletop and had been playing on and off.
Sounds like, so you pop in every 10 years to check out what's going on.
That would be kind of interesting. We'll be like, yeah, okay, we'll just age up your character and play them
Yeah.
again, and yeah, just play the same character for your whole life. I love reading stories of those people who've been playing like that group that's been playing the D&D campaign for decades. Like, I can't imagine from like their first session to now what it's been like for them all that time.
I don't know how they do it. Like, we've had the same group in some iteration for like over 20 years, but not the same game. Like we were terrible at sticking to the same game. ADHD is like a real thing in our group for sure.
That's fair. Yeah.
A DM would run for a while and be like, I'm bored. Somebody else run, and we'll go back to this, but we never go back to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
And then like now, like, the thing that's worked for us now is we play a bunch of monthly games, so it's easier for people to commit to that than a weekly game or bi-weekly game. So that's like the first time we've ever like taken a game from level 1 to level 20. Now we've done it several times by just like, you know decreasing the amount of time we meet. People are tend to be more
Mhm.
willing to commit to that.
Yeah. Having a regular schedule is nice, and knowing that, I mean, I like my main thing right now is playing Rivals, but in general, knowing how long we plan to spend on what schedule makes it a lot easier for everyone to figure out, like, you're not gonna it's not like getting together in person where you kind of hang out and it was almost your entire day,
Yeah.
really. And now it's like, yeah, we're gonna try and keep it to a solid 2 or 3 hours. So you can schedule that, and you have stuff going on. So it's a lot easier to do. And most of us are all playing virtually from home now anyway. So it's a lot easier to show up.
That does make it a lot easier. Although you still always have at least that one friend that's always late no matter what.
Well, I mean, things happen. I tend to join. I'm always like a person who joins the call early, just like
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm here,
Yeah.
and then I immediately disappear until right when to start. So I get it.
Yeah. Nice. What type of characters do you like to play and explore?
I mostly enjoy magic users because I've always been a big comic book fan, and a big like superhero, but mostly superhero teams, and especially mutants. So I really like the idea of like innate ability from somewhere. Um, so I've always tended to play spellcasters, and more recently I've taken up playing bards just because I tend to like playing charismatic characters. I don't always like getting into combat. So I'm not like a min maxer, but I like building characters who are geared for before everyone draws their weapons. Why don't we like have like a 30-second chat and see if I can basically convince us to not to not fight. I i like building characters like that, and bards have been fun. Plus I really enjoy music, and I enjoy that creative side. So playing bards that are musicians, and bards that are storytellers, and bards that are writers kind of appeals to me.
You also have quite a few options now, right? Like for that type of character,
Really
because you have
do.
bards, you have warlocks, you have sorcerers that all are spellcasters and also
Hmm.
prismatic characters.
And anything that I don't have to keep track of stuff, like, like I need the magic to be innate. I don't want to have to be like, I gotta figure out what my spells. That always got me playing. Like, I gotta keep track of these, and I don't know. Like, no, just let me have my magic, thanks. I don't want to have to like put in a request for it like you're doing government magic forms. Like, no, just thanks.
Yeah. No, thank you. Elise wants to know if you could be one of your D&D or other TTRPG characters, which would you choose?
Wow. That's interesting. I mean, I do enjoy playing. So I play in Rivals of Waterdeep. I play Virgil, who is a storm sorcerer, and Virgil is sort of a combination of a lot of different comic book characters that I've enjoyed over time. But I recently created a crystal dragonborn bard for a one shot, and this bard is absolutely like a musician, a club kid, party animal. I guess party dragon. I don't really dragon animal, whatever. And that character was the most fun to kind of step into for a ridiculous, silly campaign. Not really built for fighting, just kind of built for talking and having fun, and being part of an ensemble to work with. That's been fun. Um, let's see here. I have other characters. When I was playing Urban Arcana, we were building essentially a Scooby gang. It was really like a magical
Yeah.
mystery Scooby gang. So we all had a bit of magic power, and I was playing a character. I was playing a character, Alex. Then that was kind of fun. Like they were like the Velma, the investigator kind of character. That was also fun. But But really, it's interesting. Which would I? Hmm. Hmm. I guess I'd probably land on Virgil just because, being able to throw lightning can get you out of a lot of good situations. I mean, bad situations or good situations. It depends, really. But yeah, being able to throw lightning is pretty boss. So let's yeah, we'll stick with that.
You'd be able to take road rage to a new level.
Ugh.
Might not be a good thing. Well,
uh,
the cars have rubber tires. That should help, right?
yeah, I mean that was like, gosh, now I'm remembering like an episode of the Transformers ages ago when they were like, "Oh, this enemy has lightning. Okay, everyone, get into your vehicle modes and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
hop on top so that like everyone's grounded." Like, okay, thanks, science.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, do you mainly play D&D, or have you experiment? Are you experimenting with other RPGs?
Right now, I mainly play D&D. I have done Pathfinder as well, and I've done Humblewood, which is really D&D. It's like a setting of D&D, but that was fun. And I have dabbled. Let's see, we played Mouse Guard a while back, and but mostly, I would say mostly D&D. I think it's just not that it is the best among other tabletop games, but it is one of those things where it is an easy touch point for people to get and understand. And I would say, especially with the tools available now, it's a lot easier for people to quickly roll up a character, understand what that character can do, and then kind of go from there. Um, but I have other systems that I would, that I've not encountered. I recently got the books for Cyberpunk, and I would like that. Oh yeah, I did play a lot of Vampire the Masquerade, and the World of Darkness. Now, I've been away from it for so long that even now, looking at new World of Darkness materials, I'm a little bit lost. I know that they've changed a lot of things, and it would take me a while to get back into that. Um, but yeah, Hmm. I love the idea of getting together and the point of role play. And no matter what you want to do, like if you want to build a party that is all like we're gonna do all combat all the time and get into like the gritty wargaming origins of D&D, great. If you want to play a party that's gonna have fun, have a lot of conversations, and be combat light, you can also do that. For me, it's kind of getting together with friends and writing this story that all of us contribute to and all of us sort of own and make on our own that I kind of like most about it.
Yeah, I think even like in the games that we play, we tend to have like one combat a session, and that's and that's and it really kind of like breaks the system a little bit because everyone just goes Nova because we all know we're probably not going to do this again, but it really does throw the group through a loop if you do it one or two more times because they were not expecting that at all.
Yeah. I tend to like, I mean, yeah, one combat every few sessions is nice, but yeah, I could never do a combat heavy one only because um oh, I forgot a system that I played that really turned me off of combat, and that was Champions.
Okay.
That was like, essentially 3 months of dialogue will take, 3 months of dialogue takes 5 minutes, but one round of combat takes all weekend. I couldn't do that anymore. Like that was, like I got to play a superhero, and then I was like, wow, this is some mind-numbingly tedious combat. I no, not again, never again.
Yeah, so I got involved in a Superheroes Unlimited game, which is
Hmm,
Palladium, and I was like, "Ugh, I just don't like Palladium systems. They're just
mhm.
they're very 80s and have not changed since, which
I
is
haven't
fine
looked
if
up one of those yet.
yeah, if people it's almost like playing AD&D but with superheroes. And it's like the balance between characters is all over the place. So it's like there's got to be something better. Like I would rather play Marvel Phase Rip than play this, and which was a game from the 80s. It was also a game from the 80s, but it was a lot of fun, and also I think ahead of its time. So I started looking around, and the two games that came up were Champions and Mutants and Masterminds.
Okay, yeah.
And Mutants and Masterminds was a D20 game. Our groups are was used to D20, so I was kind of like, oh, that's probably that'll probably be a good fit. And it turns out that we really like that, and the system with each edition I felt like got better and better. And also,
Mhm.
I think Steve Kenton is a great designer as well. And you could see like his inspiration from the Marvel phase rip kind of like bleed through into that with each edition, like more and more, as you know, and also get the more it got away from like D20 D&D isms, the better the system got.
Yeah.
um so that, that was kind of fun, but it was like very like front loaded, so it's a lot if you're new to RPGs and building a character. But then after that, it was like, oh, you just roll a d20 for almost everything you do. It's fairly simple.
Yeah, I tend to enjoy games and systems that are built around one type of die. Like D&D when it gets crunchy does kind of like scare me a little bit, but anything that's really about the die are just used, for how well you did at something or how, did you want to achieve this? Let's roll the die, add that random chance element. Okay, you did, or you didn't do it so well, or if you do the 1 and the 20 on your skill checks, like, critical fail, critical success, I like those because they kind of keep things moving as opposed to the systems that are more crunchy and you're like, okay, I need to do a whole lot of math to figure out if my character is able to do this. That is a turnoff for me. And I feel like it's a turnoff for if you're completely new to a system, you really do need that friendly table to sit around so somebody can help you and be like, okay, what you can do is this and you can do that. Sometimes I need that with a new system because I'm like, this is a lot of words and a lot of math and no thank you.
Yeah, I really like Powered by Apocalypse games now,
Oh, I've
just
heard of that.
because
Yeah.
they are really simple. It's so easy. They're easy to learn. Like I remember playing my getting in my first session of Monster of the Week. I was like, oh, I might need, I might have some questions about building the character. And then I looked at their playbook system. I was like, oh, just follow the directions. And yeah, the character.
Yeah, those I love. Also like a lot of one-page RPGs, whether they're single player, multiplayer, or
Yeah.
journaling RPGs are fun to me where yeah, the whole point is that you're just, you're writing along with prompts, but then you're adding your thing to the story. Iterative ones are nice too, where I play my friend Tracy Barnett developed this game, You Are the Dungeon, where you're essentially creating a dungeon out of whatever place it is. It could be a tavern, it could be an actual dungeon. In my mind, it's like a derelict starship or whatever. And then you create something that brings people to it. Like, what treasures are you offering? Why would adventurers come here? And then the number of people, you use kind of a tarot card system to determine what happens to them. And then at the end of it, you can then build another level to this dungeon and say, okay, well, let's take all the information from the previous round and build on top of that. And it's something that you can play easily by yourself with other people. So the journaling types of games and um, I'm a big like if I can play single player or play against a set of rules so I can actually enjoy it by myself for like, play 2 hours of a thing by yourself. That way you don't have to worry about scheduling anyone else. Those are really fun to me too. So it's just like the depth and scope of design now from okay, get your friends to no, it's just you and a notebook and you're still happy playing an RPG.
So we have a couple questions. Cypher of Tyr looks like they want to cause a
Uh-oh.
little trouble. If Virgil could PvP another character, who would it be and why?
Tiamat, because it would be badass. I don't know. It's always Tiamat. Um, it's interesting. I never really think about playing against another character. If let's say, um, I think right now, if there were two people I'd like to see fight, it would probably be interesting um, to see Virgil and Kent because there was at one point where Virgil and Kent are a couple, and at one point Kent was mind controlled by the enemy to fight against us. So um, So it would be interesting to see the two of them actively fighting, only because that would be a really fun scene for me and Eugenio to do both on paper and act it out. Um, Otherwise, I'd probably want to go up against the other magic user. I'd probably go up against like Shaka, who is our tiefling warlock. That would be fun to see, like basically a sorcerer versus warlock. Sell tickets, come around, let's go.
after the first couple rounds, they're out of spells, so they just got ultra
Right. It's like
fast.
then you have to figure out, okay, strength checks. Somebody try swinging a punch. I guess I don't
Yeah.
know.
I feel like we spend so much time anymore trying to avoid having PvP in games.
I've never built a character thinking, okay, like narratively, I can disagree, and narratively we can disagree violently. But yeah, I don't think I've ever built a character to think, what if I had to fight, or like maybe you're building somebody who's actually like the double agent in your party.
Yeah.
How do you build a character that is essentially going to have to go up against the other badass characters in your party?
For me, it's just like having played back in the 80s and 90s, there were so many bad experiences with that. I think I've had my fill. But I
Yeah.
do like what you mentioned. Like, I am definitely that player. If you mind control my character, I'm going balls to the walls. I'm like,
It's game on. It's game on.
yeah,
Yeah.
because there's no animosity with that. It's just like a thing happened in the game, and I think it's far more fun to lean into it than be kind of like wishy-washy and like, oh, do I have to really do this, or how much do I have to, like, you're trying to game the game instead of, the narrative that's actually happening.
That was a big problem I had as DMing, because running a combat encounter, we build the combat encounters fairly normal for the levels of the rivals. And it just so happened that the day that we planned to run something, one player couldn't make it to the game, and we were having to rebalance this combat on the fly. But Eugenio was trying to nudge me to say, like, you can be meaner, like
Yeah.
you can use all of those attacks if you want, just like go ahead and do it. So that took a little bit to get over, to be like, I don't
Yeah.
want to hurt these people. I'm like, oh wait, no, I'm supposed to hurt these people, or at
It's not
least
you,
try,
it's the
to.
villain.
Yeah. Yeah. But the villain is also me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You I feel like some of the other games, like, Cypher System, Powered by the
Mhm.
Apocalypse, are nice in the sense that the GM doesn't roll dice. So it feels like you have some cover, you have some plausible deniability there, because it's, the players are doing the roll, and whatever happens, it's
Right.
on them.
I set up the situation, but really this is between you and the rules now. I'm no
Yeah.
longer a part of this.
Good luck. Brian wants to know any pro tips for keeping a voice consistent for a character. I always drift off a cool voice when RPing, so I just end up not trying.
um that's interesting. If it's your main character, I would say, take time and figure out, first off, no one has to do voices. Like, don't, and you may watch very popular live action shows and think, oh, I should do character voices or things. No one has to do voices. But kind of, if you're doing it for your main player character, kind of get in touch with it, figure it out. And it's okay if it evolves over time, as long as it doesn't, like, travel the country. Like, don't start with a New York accent and end up with a California one or something like that. Um, and other ones that happen spur of the moment. If you start out with a really fun, cool voice or cool accent, and you sort of lose it partway through because maybe as the NPC you're saying a lot more words than you ever planned to, your players are fine with it. They got that initial fun hit of you doing the thing, and they're 100% okay with it. I have a friend who she says the voice for a character comes to her first before anything else, and then it kind of builds up from there. For me, the way I'm going to speak in character is probably the last thing. And if I'm tired, or I didn't have a lot of time, then it's just every character will sound like this, because I I didn't have time to prepare.
I definitely have a problem with bleed with my characters. Uh, unless, there's some that are a little bit easier, like like any kind of like reptilian creature that has kind of that like that hissy sound to it, or maybe like birds that's kind of like squawk and stuff, like that stuff is a little bit
Mhm.
easier. But anything else, everything always ends up blending together. And but also those kinds of accents are really brutal on your vocal cords.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I probably did the most different voices during the season where we were co-GMing just because we were having fun. But I'm like, I did a goblin. I did we were in the Witchlight Carnival, so I played Mr. Light. No, I played Mr. Witch. No, I played Mr. I don't remember which one.
Played one of them.
I played one of them. Um, and then, randomly we decided that we would go into Fargo accents for something. And in general, we were not doing a whole lot, but it was fun. And yeah, the like doing a goblin voice, it was kind of high pitched and scratchy, and it was a bit on the vocal cords. So yeah, stay within your lane on that. Don't try to wreck yourself just to make a character sound cool. Um, and then when we had them fight. Spoilers if you haven't watched Rivals of Waterdeep, but if you haven't watched Rivals of Waterdeep, you should. So whatever. We had them fight a great worm in the finale of a season, and that was something that I kind of went down to a. If you remember the show Inspector Gadget, the voice for Dr. Claw, I kind of went to something like that, and I was really limiting the amount of words I was using because I was like, this is going to be really hard to recover from in the morning.
Yeah, that one sounds a little painful. Were you a fan of stream games before you started appearing on them?
I enjoyed them as background noise. Like I would have them up, and honestly, I would not be able to catch a lot of them live because I would be, basically getting ready and winding down to get ready for work the next day. But I'd have a lot of them up as I was going to work. I'd have them up in the background while I was at work, and I enjoyed watching them and listening to them. Um, and though I do admit that I tend to be a bit of a thief when it comes to dramatic and narrative stuff. So sometimes if people are doing really cool stuff in a show, I want to watch it, but I don't because I know that I'm going to basically lift exactly what I saw and use it somewhere else. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's the worst. So sometimes if I'm not watching your show, my excuse is you're just too cool, and I couldn't watch it without copying you. It's definitely not that I don't have enough hours in the day. It's definitely not that.
I don't I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Depending where you come from, like we believe in stealing everything, but also in your home games it doesn't really matter as much. But also
Yeah.
like, I think it's okay to steal, borrow, grab stuff from other places, and as long as you try and make it your own,
Mhm.
and that's where the inspiration was from. Oftentimes, maybe not in live streams or stream games, but in videos, like I will reference something someone else did or their take on it, and be like, this isn't my thing, this is their thing. Obviously, that's a little bit harder in a stream game, but I think it's really hard for us as humans and storytellers to not absorb that stuff, and kind of like it gets into our DNA, and then we end up spitting it back out.
Yeah, it was very hard writing for the season where we were co-jamming. Like I kept looking at the story notes and the narrative I was putting together. Like, wait, did somebody else do this? Did I get this from this? Mostly, I got it from like old TV shows and cartoons, so that was better. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
no one's gonna remember that. That's fine. But um, but yeah, that was the thing. I was like, I don't want to just basically lift an entire plot arc from someone else and throw it in our show, even if we're using the same system and the same settings and you can do a lot of the same stuff. Yeah, having it be our own thing. And once the idea, even if you totally lifted an idea from somebody else, once it encounters your players, it's going to be 100% different anyway.
I really enjoy like taking different like forms of media and like reworking it into my RPG games, and then like for me like the best part is when the players figure it out, right? Like I had ran an adventure during I think it was like really close to St. Patty's Day, and then after they got partway through, they're like, "Wait a minute, you just doing the leprechaun to us."
I mean,
So, so for me, I like those Easter eggs. I like when they discover them. Yeah, I really don't go out of my way to hide it when I'm doing that stuff. Uh, and I feel like players kind of appreciate like when they get the aha moment and like figure it out.
that is always fun when you're like, I mean, honestly, the aha moment for anything when
Yeah.
you figure out the right thing to say, or you figure out the right person to talk to, or you know, you realize, wait a second, I immediately recognize what genre we're in now, and now I know how to get out of this. That's always fun.
We had a player that was kind of like a conspiracy theorist, like I think more in real life than in game. And
Oh, yikes.
we were like, well, the funny thing about those people is like occasionally, like they'll get something right just because they've got so many crazy ideas. And we were like really early into one of Ted's campaigns, and like he like figured out the whole end game. Um, and and Ted was like, "Should I change it?" I'm like, "Why? Just let him have it. At the eventually he'll
Mhm.
get it, and it'll be a cool aha moment for them."
There was a moment where I tell people, like, we've all watched a lot of television in our life. We've all consumed a lot of storytelling and a lot of narratives, and at some point there is a limited pool to draw from for new things. And there was definitely a point during a season of Rivals where I, the player, knew where things were going, but I, the character, I was basically like, no. But I, the player, just doing these invisible fist pumps, like, yes, because this is going to be so cool. And I know
Yeah,
exactly what's going to happen. But playing it out was very different because, yeah, you may know what's going to happen. It doesn't mean your character can do a darn thing about it. Um, but yeah, it's fun to kind of recognize, like, aha, aha. And yeah, we definitely play with those tropes and it's fun. But I've never left like a bunch of Easter eggs in, and that may be something I'll do, especially honestly, if I'm gonna run anything in a Star Trek universe, you kind of have to. Like, you have to
yeah.
just, even those really fun, cool things for them to discover or connections to make would be great for them to discover along, because you want everyone to have as much fun as possible. And that's part of the fun of playing Star Trek is you're so familiar with that universe that you can't not lean into the tropes and the references and the things.
I kind of now want to have a even if it's only for this one scene, run a Star Trek game where there's like a dojo, and everyone's lined up doing drills together, but they're just doing Captain Kirk moves. It's like,
Oh my god, yes, just nothing but double fist punch, that's it.
yeah,
And then the combat roll where he like rolls away.
yeah, yeah,
The entire time it's the fight music from a mock time where it's dun, 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 dun. Like, that would be it. Like, that's my workout mix. Yeah, that's all it is.
yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've been gaming so long at this point. I just feel like I just gravitate towards gravitate more towards goofier things nowadays than serious. And also, the world is so serious, especially right now. The world is so serious. I don't need that in my life or my
No,
gaming
and
life.
absolutely. Like, I will bring a dramatic element into a lot of stuff. I am known for being able to go from comedy to drama, like, oh, laughing and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
everyone's crying really easily. But yeah, overall fun is the key. I You made me think of another game I played, which is called Steel and Noct, and it is a dour, depressing, very, very sad game, but very fun. But we did play one session of it, and essentially you are all in some way responsible for somebody having died, either neglect or murder or whatever. And a medium has gathered you all together because you've all been haunted by the spirit of this person. And it's this very improv styled game of who done it. And you don't even find out until the day of the game. You don't even find out if you're the murderer or you're the person responsible for the death or not. And it gets very deep and very dark, and it can get that way. And I also think there are ways where it can be fun. But um, yeah, it's like right now, all we want to do is just have a bit of an escape from everything going on before beyond our four walls, and not ignore it. There's a lot going on in the world that people should be aware of. They should help when they can. They should make sure that they're safe and their friends and family and loved ones are safe. But it's also nice to sit down and say, you know what, for a few hours, let's just put the phones down. Let's like close Twitter. Let's get on Zoom or get around the table and roll some dice for just a few hours, and that's our escape.
So, are you playing in any non-stream games now?
Not right now. I have some people who have asked, and I try to manage my schedule because often what happens is they want to schedule them later in the evening when I can't play, or they schedule them right when I have my weekly standard streamed game. Um, but no, I do a lot of like bouncing off of ideas with people that they're going to use in their offline games. But it would be nice to get into an offline game. There are a few in some discords that I'm in that played over voice. The Pathfinder game from a while back, we played goblins, and that was completely like that was not streamed, and it was great.
You can't go wrong with a band of goblins.
Yeah, we were leaning into the full goblin trope, and just it was nothing but mischief and shenanigans the entire
Yeah.
time, and it was so great.
Was that first edition or second edition?
I don't know. I feel like it was actually was it called We Be Goblins or We Are Goblins? I'm not sure.
I think that's a first edition module, but I'm not entirely sure either. I have not played that
Mhm.
much Pathfinder.
Yeah. But I found it. We used a website which I did not have a lot of dice before the pandemic. Now
Yeah.
I have too many dice and I don't know what I'm going to do. The dice are going
Mercy,
to take
can you
over.
actually have too many dice?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah. But it was great because we had digital tools that were able to handle a lot of the dice rolling, and we used like maps and character sheets. So it was easy, but yeah, it was non-streamed. We were just all like laughing and goofing on a Discord call, and that was just as fun as anything else.
Yeah, the only second edition Pathfinder I
Oh,
played
hold
was
on a second. I
was a
believe my headset seems to have given out on me.
oh
Like, oh wait, we're back. Okay.
yeah,
Technology.
I've only played like one game of 2E Pathfinder, and it was a Goblin Alchemist. I'm like, I don't know much about this system. I just know I want to be a goblin and blow things up. So
You know, that's I do like the ability to blow stuff up. I want to play more of the tinkerer type of classes where you are just building, like it's like I would love to play a character that just builds explosives. Like
nice.
everything they build. Like it's a music box, yeah, but it also blows up. That also catches on fire. Like don't touch any of that. Like
I am playing a gnome artificer, um, and actually the Eugenio was running the game. It was a Curse of Strahd game, but
oh yeah.
um, he's a battlesmith, so he has the companion, and since he's small, he can ride it. So he's got a mechanized kangaroo that he rides in the pouch of.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I had a different character, but that character did not survive originally. In that campaign, I was the first casualty. My cleric, my human cleric of Maglubiet, the Goblin God, had crawled into the what was it? It was a flying cauldron or skull for for uh for one of the witches, and it did not go well. It was a bad. Turns
Oh,
out it was a bad hiding
yikes.
place.
I've never no, I've never had a long I planned this character to be around for a while die. I
Yeah.
did play in a meat grinder, and essentially they said create a bunch of one level characters, level one characters, create a bunch of them, have them ready because yeah, this is intended to off your characters. And what I love is a lot of people who were in it actually made it through on their first character. I did not. I went through three characters, but you know, everything was designed to kill us, and it was a delightful romp. Yeah.
I am not good at trying to keep my characters alive because I tend to do whatever I think will be fun in the moment. Not always the best choices. Uh, you
I
know,
think well, you get into the mind of a character, and especially like there's a big thing depending on what genre you're playing. You're an adventurer or you're an explorer or you're a sci-fi hero, but the mentality of your character is they're going to leap into danger most of the
yeah.
time, or they're going to do the thing that nobody else would do. So the fact that they survive it is sort of a good coin toss for them in most situations.
And I always have tons of character ideas, so I'm always okay with that character not, surviving or coming back and just rolling in with a new one.
Yeah.
I think last
Thankfully,
weekend I lost another character.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Different game, different game. But that Shadow of the Demon Lord, and that game's a little bit more brutal.
Hmm.
And like I totally knew that it was a fight I shouldn't be in, but I had a cool idea, and I'm like, if I can get this off, this will be so cool. And the dice were not with me. I got murdered by a werepossum. But like in that game, you get like unique items, and my unique item was an uncuttable rope. And I'm like, if I could just lasso him and get him into a tree, he won't be able to hurt anybody.
Hmm.
I,
A were possum.
yeah, a werepossum.
Okay.
Don't mess with them. It sounds silly, but apparently no joke. It had just
Oh
ripped. It
gosh.
just ripped the throat out of one of the other characters too.
Oh.
And I was playing like a clockwork, and after a couple rounds of us both having bad rolls, the DM rolls, and he's like, "Well, it just leaps on you and grabs your head and rips it off." Like, oh, okay.
Okay. That is Vorpal Bunny from Monty Python, I guess. Okay,
Yeah,
dang.
yeah,
That's ouch.
yeah.
Uh
It's funny. The adventure kind of has like a big bad, but the big bad was nothing compared to this random monster that ended up in our party because we found this guy that was just mentally not well, and we're like, we'll take him back and help him. And as soon as like, I think every night, like I think the GM was making checks to see if he changed or not.
oh my gosh.
He did.
Oh dear. That's I mean, that's amazing. Still, I would love like a were possum. That's kind of awesome. I
Yeah,
um I don't know. I feel like, like there should be some agreed upon, there should be an agreed upon like, punch card that every player gets and every DM acknowledges. Like, you basically just punch a card out every time or stamp it when you lose a character. After 10 deaths,
free
maybe,
pizza.
your next character gets a magic item or something. Yeah. Yeah, your deal, free pizza. That is the key to all gaming sessions, honestly, is
Yeah,
offer
yeah.
pizza and they will show up. Yeah.
Uh, in that game before we got started, like we talked about like how we felt about, are we okay with characters dying and losing them? So we had like an agreement in our session zero
Mhm.
beforehand. Um, and so we like knew going in that that was going to be a dangerous game.
I like that. I love check-ins with the characters. I love the players getting together ahead of time or even multiple times throughout the campaign. We also, when we threw our big bad at the rivals, we had a virtual conversation with them ahead of time to say this is going to be a pretty big enemy. You can probably do stuff, but maybe, is everybody essentially okay if your character goes into death saves during this? We had a plan just in case, like we
Yeah.
weren't actually actively trying to kill anyone, but we wanted to say, like, if your character dies, is that okay? Not, we don't want you to all of a sudden roll up a new character, but and it was nice that everybody, kind of said, like, okay, this is something that might happen. We're all okay with it. And it didn't take anyone by surprise. The massive amounts of damage that were flying back and forth. And that was nice. So the safety tools that exist now, even just as basic as a session zero, did not exist essentially through like the 80s to 90s when I'm playing. And
And we were also
now,
worse people back then, I feel like.
like, sometimes, yeah, you
I won't
had,
speak for you. I'll
like,
only speak for myself.
no, the thing is, I know I've been involved in the stories, and I know the stories of like one person being out of the session for one session, and they come back, and the DM's like, "Yeah, well, I did this to your character," and everybody has one horror story like that where
Yeah.
it's like, this is something I absolutely didn't want, and from then on, it was no longer fun for me. So I feel like there are still lots of lovely tables out there, but the fact that we can now make sure that everybody's having fun is the most important part. It's not just like, you're just basically, you don't leave the game because it's all your friends. It'd be much better if you all agreed upon ahead of time. Here's what's going to be fun for everyone, and that way nobody has to feel like I'm just here because you're all my friends. Like,
Yeah, it definitely felt like back then tables tended to be more punitive. It was very more antagonistic between the GM and the players, and that really has evolved to where it's more cooperative storytelling. At least in my experiences as well, uh, with it. And now, like, having session zeros, having social contracts, and being able to discuss everything and making sure everyone's okay, and not just assuming that whatever you do is going to be fine in the game.
Yeah.
And what I think one of the things that, like, I've learned is, like, making sure the session zero is actually fun and interesting. Where, because I,
Mhm.
I know some people are like, we're all busy, right? We all only have so much time. So I know some people are like, I don't want to waste my time talking about the game. I just want to play the game. But if you design your session zeros in a certain way, you can have a lot of narrative elements to it where you're starting to build the world and the story you guys are going to tell together in that session zero instead of session one.
Yeah, I think we all know since I do play a lot of one shots, very often our session 0 is just saying you all have worked together for some time, or maybe
Yeah,
this is your first job or whatever. And it but we do a lot of fun things that basically like say like, okay, well, what did you all do that made you famous enough to be considered an adventuring party? And the last one, we like basically we did nothing famous, but all of our party just kept making up stories that everyone else repeated. So they
yeah.
thought all of this of us, and we were like, we're actually we're baby adventurers, but we just told a lot of lies, and now they think all this of us. Um, because yeah,
Very
I mean the you all meet in a tavern is a very classic thing, but if you can do just a bit of conversation ahead of time to be like, but why? Why are you all there? What have you all done?
a very successful whisper campaign is how you guys started.
Look, marketing is everything, even in the world of fantasy.
No, I agree. Like, and not only that too, like, it helps the players and their characters be bound together before you get started. We kind of did that in one of Ted's games, and we kind of we started at like fourth level or fifth level or something. So, like, it was a good opportunity for us to figure out, like, well, why are we this level already and this amount of experience?
Mhm.
It was the story of the seven that stayed, right? So our group took on an adventure, and that the culmination of that venture became the big bad for the whole campaign, and we like went
Ah.
into the game already hating that guy, right? So
Wow, that's awesome.
it, like, the DM never had to motivate us to do anything.
Mhm.
We just wanted to we just wanted to get that guy because he was terrible.
I think that's yeah, that's like sometimes that's all the motivation you need. It's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
that guy. Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, but it's I don't know, like, because 'cause we've definitely, one streamed game that we ran, and it was essentially, Cypher of Tyr, my friend, teaching other people how to play D&D, and me kind of coming back to it was, um, we had a session 0-ish where we just really talked about creating characters, but we didn't talk about the personalities of those characters and their dynamics, and that bit us in the ass like two sessions in, and we were
Mm.
like, okay, we're going to have an email conversation between us all because these things aren't quite working out. So we were still able to have that check-in. But yeah, like the fun of a session 0 is when you're creating like, okay, this is what I created, okay, this is what I created. um well, what if they have an existing relationship of being siblings or rivals or friends, or that's the kind of thing that comes in a session 0, because then it leads you into, you're not walking into session 1 with you knowing each other in the narrative but not really knowing how you're going to interact with each other, and it helps kick off and eliminate those awkward moments of knowing how your characters can really act with each other as opposed to kind of skirting around those lines.
The best, like, DM advice I ever got was from a person that had not been playing the game very long. And they had a YouTube channel, and I watched, and they said the most profound thing to me, and that was, you don't have to figure out how your players group got together. Let them do it. I was like,
Mhm.
I can do that. Like, after spending decades of like agonizing how the group is going to meet and how I'm going to get them all together, it was
Yeah,
profound.
it really, yeah. And I think the most fun is when everybody comes and says, okay, here's the character I've made, here's their name, here's their class, and um here's a little bit about them. And then people say, oh, well, what if And well, I bet, like what if I have a really like, sibling rivalry, even though they're not related? What if just those kind of things developing when you get to say before we play, because then you can kind of start, you can bake in some of the in jokes between your characters, those group dynamics, it can be like, I think one of my favorite things I've realized is somebody recently asked me who the leader is of the Rivals of Waterdeep. And I was like, um, I don't think anybody would say they are. There are some people who are the de facto decision makers, but like imagine throwing that curveball at your party if they're all in character and they have to answer in character,
Yeah.
asking your entire party, so who's the leader? And just watching the chaos that ensues. Like,
Uh, yeah, the thing you brought up about like, yeah, having like a sibling rivalry between characters really made me think of the difference between playing back in the 80s and 90s and playing now. Like now we're more apt to like talk to the other player about it and be like, "Hey, I got this great idea. What do you think?" Compared to back then, we would have been like, "I have this great idea. I'm just going to execute now without getting permission or consent," which
we had a lot of we
can
don't
go
see
badly.
we did the folded note thing a lot. There were so
Yeah.
many like I'm gonna fold this and slide it to the DM, or I'm gonna fold this and slide it to the player across the table. We did a lot of that because there was no, that's one thing, is like there was no back channel.
Yeah.
You didn't have a private DM window that you could have with any of the players individually. So a lot of it did take place at the table in real time, and it was just like, I'm gonna throw this chaos in. Um, so that is good because yeah, now people kind of realize like we're all a part of this. We're all telling this, and we all want to have fun, even if you have people who have different play styles at the table. But yeah, I remember there were a whole lot of like that DM screen was like it was imposing because you'd hear a die roll back there. You'd
Yeah.
hear a scribble. You'd hear them scribbling, and and they're just looking at you like, and yep, and I'm like, wait, what's going? Wait, what's going on? What happened? What did I do? Um,
Or the notes or the pull aside, you pull a player aside and be like, grab a D20 and come with me. Yeah,
yeah, like wait a
that's
second, that's like, am I going to get fired? What's happening?
yeah, 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 it's definitely like when yeah. And everyone else is looking at you as you get carted off and they're speculating. Also like I don't know, the one of the DM techniques would be to send out red herring notes that didn't have anything on them, or there was like
Yep,
it was
yep.
just to mess with the players or roles to mess with the players.
It absolutely reminds me of the like the board game How to Host a Murder, or How to Host Your Own Murder Party.
Uh
I can't remember the exact title. They've come back now, but that was it. Essentially, like everybody gets these notes on their character, and then the person who's the host or running the game halfway through the evening would give them additional notes that was completely unknown information to them. And it might be something they knew about somebody else, or it might be something they knew about themselves, or it might be nothing at all. And that's always fun. It's like, oh, okay. And I do love rumors. I love rumors at the table. I love things that maybe are true, maybe aren't true. Um, we like playing around with facts in the world, and especially when you're adventurers, because most of you are pretty badass, and the rest of the world talks about you. But how do they talk about you? Like, do they revere you? Are they scared of you? Like, what is said about you when you walk into a place? And those kind of things, playing with that information of the world is really fun because you know it's on your character sheet. But how does every NPC in that world see you?
that yeah, when you mention the rumors, it made me think of a convention game I ran, and one of the players was a bard, so they would make uh, bardic knowledge checks all the time. But no matter what the role was, that bard was giving information. And if it was a bad role, they would just make it up. If it was a good role, they would just repurpose whatever I told them they knew, and it was awesome.
I think that's amazing. Like,
Yeah,
to sit there and get a bad roll on an information check and be like, yeah, well, because I mean, you know, we're nerds.
yeah.
There's a lot of us that don't want to be wrong. And why not bring that to your character? It's like, well, you do a skill check. You don't actually learn anything. Yeah, but I'm going to turn around to my party and pretend and pull information right out of my ass and be like, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I know, 100% guaranteed. Do not fact check me. Yeah, that's it.
The table's looking at the one you rolled, and then you're definitely like, no, that is the crown of the goodly king of blah blah blah.
Yeah, absolutely. Confirmed. Yeah.
Isn't that an evil sigil right on the center of it? No, that's a
It's just
misinterpretation.
it's dust. Just blow on it, blow it off. It's fine. No, it's good.
Yeah. So on that note, we are just past the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
um, I don't know. Like same thing. I always say like have fun no matter what system you play, no matter who you're playing with. Just I like to have fun at the table. That's my number one thing in any game I've ever played. And when I've no longer had fun, I kind of move on. And rediscovering tabletop now has been fantastic, whether it's role playing games or just, like board games or anything that you kind of sit around with friends and do virtually now, has been fantastic. So, always have fun.
That is an awesome thought to leave off on. Thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today. As always, links are in the description. Go check them out. And until next time, stay nerdy.